Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's betterhelp.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space. This week I'm wearing some of our 40th anniversary collection from tiegear.com. Check it out. There's a whole bunch of cool items. There's some men's specific items, some women's specific items, some really cool stuff overall. I wish my setup was such that I could show you the back of the shirt easily, but it's got a really, really cool old picture, classic picture, what we would consider classic Tiger Schulman's from the beginning of us back when we were Master Danny Tiger Schulman's United American Karate. The awesome picture of Tiger Schulman and his brother Shion Schulman. But check it out. Awesome line. I'm going to be wearing, I have another shirt that I'll be wearing next week as well, so you guys can see at least a couple of the awesome things that are being produced on this line. And I'm ready to give you guys this week's food for thought, as always. So this week, I kind of want to cover two sides of the same coin, if you will. Two sides of the same coin. So what I want to think about specifically is how we treat ourselves, specifically when it comes to the progress that we're making towards our goals, right? So if you're like me, and obviously I think if you're someone who listens to this show, or watches the show on YouTube, then you're somewhat of a similar mindset to me. You believe in pushing yourself. You believe in setting goals. Hopefully, at the beginning of the year, you followed my advice. You wrote down your goals. You have them someplace you're going to see them all the time. So that way, you're bettering yourself some way, somehow. You're doing, what you need to do in order to make sure that you are progressing towards those goals. And when it comes towards your achievement, to your achievements, I should say, and to your goals, what we have to make sure of is that we are playing two roles. We are two sides of the same coin. And those two jobs work in tandem, even though they are kind of opposite. Right? And one of the things you have to be is your own best cheerleader. Right? And I'll explore that. But you also have to be your own hardest critic. Right? I'll explore that as well. Right? Because both of those, the balance is really what's important. And I'll get to that. That'll be my third way of my kind of sum up thought once I've kind of illustrated each of my points. So let's start with your own biggest cheerleader. Right? So often in life, we find people who are so wallowing in the negative, right? Whenever anything goes wrong in their life, when they're pursuing anything, they tend to focus on that which goes wrong rather than that which goes right. Right? Like people will, I've heard this example, and I'll take it right from Shion Gravina. He said it a million times. He goes, as a parent, we never want to be the kind of parent where your kid pours 9 perfect glasses of milk, doesn't spill a drop, and then spills a drop on the 10th glass, and that's the one that you react to. And so often people do that with themselves, right? They'll be training into martial arts, for example, and they'll be going super consistently. They're making class after class after class, and in each class they're doing better, and they're putting great effort in, and they're really feeling positive about what they're doing. And then they miss a class, and they'll wallow in that one missed class, in that one day that they were off, and they'll use that as a motivation to beat themselves up, as a reason to beat themselves up, and maybe use some negative self-talk or other such things to really kind of push themselves in the wrong direction, which in my opinion is a terrible, terrible thought process, right? They beat themselves up so much. Maybe they've taken, let's just pick a number here. Maybe they took 30 classes, 30 of their scheduled classes in a row without missing a one. Right? And they were on time, they put their effort in, they listened, they were coachable, all those things. And then after that last one, after that one missed class, they forget about those 30 and they focus on the one. And that's so backwards, right? We should focus on the 30. Listen, the one is going to happen. Now, don't get me wrong. If you were just lazy or whatever, yeah, maybe you're upset about being lazy, but don't harp on it. Don't focus on it, right? Because I would think that anybody who's going to make those 30 classes consistently, again, just taking my same example, anybody who's going to make those 30 classes consistently and then branch out and maybe miss one, they're not missing one because they're sitting around eating ice cream, streaming Netflix, right? An engagement came up, something came up, they had to work late, something, right? Something came and influenced them from being there on that day. And that's just going to happen. That's just life. So for us to focus on that over all the success we had to that point is terrible, right? Like we just had the 60-day challenge finish up, and we had some students who really did some really great work. And like I said, did really, really amazing work. And again, we're thinking about things that people did during that time period. And one of the things that people did during that time period is they tracked their nutrition, right? And they were eating properly all their meals. So that being the case, if you were the person who was eating clean meal after clean meal after clean meal, and you were doing this day in, day out, and you were doing it for week after week after week after week, and then it was like, your wedding anniversary or somebody's birthday, and you had one meal that was wrong, and then you sat there and you beat yourself up for that one meal, as though that one meal undid all the good meals that you did, right? Just like we know one healthy meal isn't going to make you healthy, we also know one bad meal isn't going to make you unhealthy. And to focus solely on the bad is just going to keep you down, right? It's going to be an unsustainable mindset, right? It's not something that you'll be able to keep doing, right? Because then the feedback loop is negative, not positive. Instead, we should be celebrating our successes, right? We should focus on each thing that we did well, right? Like if you went to class and you know that you made 10 mistakes, you might have made 10 mistakes, but you also might have done like 40 things right. Focus on the 40, not the 10. Yeah, think about the 10, make them better, right? But think about getting that 10 as good as the 40, not the other way around. Not just, oh, those 10 are so bad. No, I'm going to make those 10 as good as the 40, right? Really be positive with yourself, right? It's important for you above all else to be your own biggest cheerleader because no one's with you 24 hours a day and no one else controls the voice inside your own head. So when you're reviewing what went on in your day or your workout or your training or whatever, for you to simply harp on the things that went wrong, for you to have that negative self-talk, it's so unhelpful to you. Instead, your motivation should be the opposite. Your motivation should be to focus on what went right, to focus on the positive, and to focus on how that positive made you better. Right? Now, other end of the coin now, as we're thinking about the other end of the coin, the opposite end of that coin is also be your own hardest critic. Now, I know this is going to sound completely counterintuitive. I'm going to talk about how these work together in a few minutes. But I think it's also important that we expect a lot from ourselves, right? Because if we're super easy on myself, it's funny, I saw this meme recently and it said the problem with self-discipline is I'm the person in charge of me. And that guy runs a really loose ship. Right? Which I kind of loved. I thought it was very funny. Right? But it's funny, the only people who really think about, their discipline level with themselves is someone who has a fairly high level of self-discipline. But I digress. So going back to this concept of being your own hardest critic, there is nothing wrong with expecting a lot from yourself, right? Of holding yourself to high standards, of pushing yourself, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with being hard on yourself when it comes to how you push yourself and so forth. And I think that's a really good quality, as a matter of fact. I mean, going back to the idea of goals that we talked about earlier, if you're like me and you wrote your goals down at the beginning of the year, I hope you set ambitious goals. I hope you didn't set things that were easy to accomplish. And then I hope that you're tough on yourself with your accountability, right? And really, those are the things that we want to be our hardest critic on, right? When I say our hardest critic, I mean, we should not let ourselves off the hook for failures, missteps, mistakes, right? Now, again, I'm going to get to the balance in a minute. So hear me out on this way. I know it's going to sound very counterintuitive to what I just said, but I want to talk about how this works in tandem in a minute, but I have to set both sides of the coin. So when we're thinking about being our own hardest critic, we're thinking about how we judge our own performance, how we judge our own accountability, how we judge the standards that we hold ourselves to, how we judge the goals that we make. All of those are very, very important. Because if we do those right, we are going to level up. We're going to strive, right? Like one thing you hear very, very commonly from athletes, like if you're thinking about combat sports and you think about a UFC fighter, they'll talk about their camp for the fight and they're like, oh, leading into this camp, it was the best camp I've ever had. I worked the hardest I've ever worked. And okay, they're holding themselves accountable, right? And again, accountability and being tough on yourself is a good thing because just like on the positive half, no one else controls the voice in your mind but you. So if you know that you did the work, if you know that you held yourself accountable, that you held yourself to really high standards to be accountable to, then it's much easier for you to know that you're moving in the right direction, right? Often people are too nice to themselves. They don't hold themselves accountable at all, right? They think nothing of missing that workout. They think nothing of eating that poor meal. They think nothing of being easy on themselves. They think nothing of not pushing themselves to the best of their abilities. And because they think nothing of those things, then those things happen often, right? Again, think of the example I gave you before, the person who made their 30 classes versus missed one. The person who's not hard enough on themselves, who doesn't hold themselves to high enough standards, they're not making those 30 classes in a row. They're making a couple, they're missing a couple. They're making a couple, they're missing a couple. And they're following this pattern day in, day out, over and over and over and over again. And it's so foolhardy because they never get to see what their full potential is. And potential is one of the greatest resources we can waste as a human being. Instead of wasting potential, we should be thinking about pushing ourselves forward. We should be thinking about getting ourselves to the highest levels that we're capable of. Right? What a pity it would be to reach the end of our days and never know just what we're capable of. I think it's super important that we know what we're capable of, that we put that level of work in to know what we're capable of, to know what our limits are, to know who we are as a human being. I think that those limits define us so much. And I think finding them and pushing them, maybe even exceeding them, is a great thing. Right? But that takes being hard on yourself. That takes being your own hardest critic. Right? We've all done workouts or classes or whatever where we did it and we're like, yeah, I kind of phoned that one in. And we know it. And if you don't hold yourself accountable, then, man, who's going to? Right? Because I don't think the best coaches out there are going to beat up their people when they're having their worst day. I think they're going to lift them up on those days and they're going to keep them positive on their best. But again, that's me. So with that thought process in mind, we have to be the one who holds ourselves accountable. We're the person who has our inner monologue. Like we're the eyes that we look into when we're brushing our teeth at the end of the night. Right? Unless you look in your spouse's eyes, which is kind of weird. But nonetheless, we're the one that has to be that voice in our head, be accountable to that voice in our head. So I think it's very important that we do hold ourselves accountable, that we do expect big things from ourselves. We expect high levels from ourselves. And if we don't meet those levels, we shouldn't be afraid to remind ourselves. But here's where the whole idea comes together, is the balance between. The balance between. Because if we're only our own biggest cheerleader, then we can easily be that person who takes a couple classes, misses a couple classes, takes a couple classes, misses a couple classes. And it's very easy to be that person if you're only your own best cheerleader. Because then for every couple of classes you make, you're like, yay, I did it. I deserve a little break. And then you find yourself off those couple of classes. And the same holds true for things like your nutrition and whatnot. Again, if you're the person who's too easy on yourself, who's so super positive on yourself all the time, like, I ate a couple of really good meals today, so because I did, I deserve like a good dessert, right? And you're holding yourself back because you're only being the cheerleader. On the other hand, if you're only being the hardest critic, you're never recognizing the successes. You're never recognizing the strides that you're making along the way. It's only by balancing the two effectively that we're able to keep ourselves on course. Think for a moment about paddling a rowboat, excuse me. Right? If you have like a rowboat or a canoe and you're only paddle on one side, you're going to go in a circle, right? Similarly, if you're the person who is too easy on themselves, who's only their best cheerleader, you're going to stay in that positive circle and you keep yourself in that positive circle. But if you're the person who's only their own hardest critic, you're going to keep going in that negative circle over and over and over again. And you're gonna keep yourself bound in negativity. If you think about it, when you paddle a kayak or a canoe, you got to go once on this side, once on this side, once on this side, once on this side, and you got to stay the course. And it just kind of bumps you down your path to keep you straight on path, which is super important. We need that, right? We've got to have. If you guys ever went bowling, which I'm sure you probably have, I'm sure you've seen people bumper bowling, right? Like there's many a lane out there where they have bumpers that they either slide down the gutters or they come up from the gutters because they're automatic. And what it does is when the kid throws the ball, hopefully it's a kid, into the gutter, it bounces off of the bumper and then off of the other bumper and it stays on the course until eventually it hits the pins. Well, if we want to hit the pins that are of our goals, we have to celebrate our successes along the way, and we have to be congratulatory to ourselves for everything we do well. We have to, because that creates a positive feedback loop around what we're doing, around the process, around making ourselves better. But we don't want to go so far in that direction that we stay stuck in only positive. We got to do that. And then when there's a reason to be held accountable, when we didn't give ourselves the very best in our training that day, it's okay to look in the mirror and be like, you could have done better. There's nothing wrong with that. With saying, you got to push yourself a little more. It's the balance of the two, right? If we're on one extreme too long, we're still going to get a gutter ball. If we're on the other extreme too long, we're still going to get the gutter ball. But if we balance back and forth between those bumpers, where we're positive with everything that's gone well in our journey, and we're hard on ourselves when we deserve it, when things went off course, then we will truly move in a direction that we're supposed to, which is exactly what we want to have happen. We want to make sure that we have our biggest cheerleader in our own head for everything that went well. Because that way, if you had nothing to be held accountable for that day, you can feel really good about everything that you did to get yourself closer and more in the direction of the goals that you have. But then if there is a day where something went wrong, where you need to be held accountable, if it was your own fault, then you have your own greatest critic in your ear reminding you of what your goals are and what you're after and how you're going to make that happen. And that is super important. Because again, if we stay too negative, why are we going to stay on the course? We feel like we're failing all the time anyway. If we're too positive, it's too easy to go off course, too easy to veer in that direction and just pat ourselves in the back a little too much when we really don't deserve it, right? What matters is that we find the center, we find the middle, where we're both positive with ourselves and we're also feeling, excuse me, we're both positive with ourselves and we're staying the course throughout our mistakes, right? The best example I can come up with this is when a fighter is watching back their own performance and they're watching how they fought their particular opponent, right? The people who do the best in the world are the people who are honest with themselves, right? What bothers me very frequently is when I hear a fighter who had a fight that they lost and they're watching the fight and they're like, yeah, I was doing everything right, but and the worst culprits in this scenario are the ones who blame the judges. Oh, I was winning that fight, but I don't know what the judges were looking at. Listen, sometimes it's the judges, sure. But if that's the rabbit hole that you fall down and you use that as a crutch, now you're being too positive on yourself, right? You're never going to make the improvements to make sure those judges aren't a factor, to make sure that you don't have to rely on that. And that way you'll leave no doubt the next time. The other end, using the same example, would be someone who's only looking at what went wrong. Oh, look, I dropped that hand there. Oh, look, my feet are out of position there. Oh, man, I didn't defend that technique enough. They kept landing that technique. Oh, how terrible. And again, all they're going to do then is feel bad about that performance. But the thing is, we know when it comes to anything that a person does, there is some sunshine and there is some rain, right? There is some black and there is some white. We need to be able to find the balance, right? I know some of the best fighters in the world who watch their film, and when they watch the film back at their fight, they'll celebrate the things that I did well. Yeah, my left hook was landing like nobody's business. He couldn't stop my left hook when I was landing it. And they'll also look at the things that they didn't do as well. Yeah, I didn't defend his leg kicks enough. He landed so many good leg kicks on me. I got to make sure that I don't leave myself vulnerable for leg kicks again. And it's the balance of the two that really leads to an improved performance. Because now they're worried about how can I take that left hook and build it together with solid defense of their low kicks. Okay, now I know when that person's throwing a low kick, I know what I want to be doing is I want to be checking or I want to be throwing my right hand as soon as I see that foot move. That way I can put my left hook right behind it. And we know my left hook's very good. So that way they're improving what went wrong and building it off of what went right. And to me, that's the best way to guarantee your success in any goal, is to make sure that we're building off, we're celebrating all the wins, we're celebrating all the positivity, and we're building off of it. We're using that to correct our mistakes and to use those mistakes to complement that success to keep moving things in the right direction. So that's all I have for you guys this week. As always, you can reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at sensei_Leonelli. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Sensei James Leonelli. You can go to my link tree, find everything to do with me on the internet, linktr.ee/sensei, SENSEI, Leonelli, LEONELLI. There you can find information on Swing for the Stars coming back April the 20th. If you guys are listening, Catalina has got a fighter t-shirt out available on Natty Combat Apparel. Check it out there, or on my Instagram. I put it there as well, or on my school's Instagram, which I'll give out in a moment. You can also find everything to do with Flex Fights on there, which again, we got Flex Fights coming up April the 13th. So another big show coming. Be prepared for that as well. Other than that, guys, in terms of my link tree, you can also find sponsor information there. Sponsorship opportunities still available. So if you guys are interested, reach out to me in any of the methods that I gave you. Beyond that, make sure that you can find my school online, tsmasmithtown.com. Facebook, we're at facebook.com/TigerSchulmanSmithtown. Twitter and Instagram at TSMMA_Smithtown. You can find out more about the Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole at tsk.com. Find the podcast on Instagram at Sensei's Weekly Mindset. Make sure that you guys leave a rate and review. It just helps. Subscribe, get you new episodes every Wednesday. But the single most important thing that you can do for me, guys, is make sure that you guys share the podcast. It is the only form of advertising that I have. So I very much appreciate when I see you guys doing it. Thank you in advance. So until next time, my friends, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.